All right, we are excited to have Madi and Alden here with us to share about their organization. Madi has been engaging partners with Food Forward as a volunteer coordinator for a little over 2 years now. Throughout her career, she delved into a number of different avenues for improving our food systems, startups, food cooperatives, farms, nonprofit mutual aid groups, that knows that dedicated volunteers are the heartbeat of food recovery work. As volunteer coordinator for the Food Forward Community Programs Department, Madi focuses on creating a fruitful volunteer program, including volunteer recruitment, stewardship, and retention of our dedicated crew. Alden is the backyard harvest coordinator in LA County at Food Forward. She's been coordinating volunteer-led harvests across the city for the past year. She works with harvests alongside volunteers who want to be involved in the food recovery from where produce all starts, in the earth and on the trees. Alden trains volunteer harvest leaders to organize their own harvest and prepares fruit donors to welcome volunteer harvest teams into their yards, vines, and trees. In this session, Madi and Alden will explore how we can create a positive and fulfilling experience for all our volunteers while managing expectations and delegating responsibilities. Join us in our journey of cultivating well-rounded gleaning opportunities for all types of volunteers. I want to make sure we're recording, and then I'm going to hand the mic. Oh,
thank you. Thanks for coming, everyone. You can progress if you like.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was looking.
Awesome. So we're with Food Forward in Los Angeles and Ventura County, and we'll be talking about growing a volunteer program for all seasons. Next slide. I'm Madi. Here I am talking to a volunteer on the phone. I'm the senior coordinator with Food Forward. I've been with the company a little.
And hi, I'm Alden. There I am practicing some serious balancing skills. I'm the backyard harvest coordinator in Los Angeles County, and I've been with Food Forward now for about 1.5 years. So you can go right on ahead. Let's get started. So this is Food Forward's mission statement. We've been living truthfully by this statement, connecting surplus produce to the folks who need it the most in Los Angeles and Ventura counties now for 16 years. Our backyard harvest program turned 16 this year. Our farmers market recovery program is turning 13, and then our wholesale recovery program is turning 11 this year. And throughout this time, we have really tenured deep relationships throughout our main harvesting and gleaning regions. So that would be Los Angeles County, Ventura, a bit more north of LA, and then Santa Barbara to the west and north, making that northwest of Ventura County. All right, throughout this time, we've been able to glean about 400 million pounds of produce. We're going on 500 very soon here. Last year in the community programs alone, we gleaned about 1 million pounds together. And Madi's going to tell us a little bit more like what makes up our community programs. Go ahead.
So our community programs are our backyard harvest and farmers market recovery. Those are open to and powered by volunteers. And then our wholesale recovery program is all staff run, and they're tackling the huge task of gleaning the LA wholesale produce district in downtown LA and bringing that produce back to our warehouse in Los Angeles and distributing the food from there. So Food Forward is really acting as the middleman between rescued food and food distribution. And we're working with over 200 hunger relief agencies every year. Today, we're gonna go over our community programs a little bit and then delve into our volunteer programs.
So first we'll go ahead and talk about the Backyard Harvest Program. It's our inaugural program that kicked us all off in 2009. And now we're harvesting across LA, Ventura, and Santa Barbara counties. We started on Craigslist recruiting volunteers, but now we rely on donors coming to us and saying, hey, I've got way too many oranges, kumquats. lemons on my trees. Do you think you could get some volunteers together to come glean the excess and donate that forward? So these harvest events are led by folks we call harvest leaders. And we're harvesting fruit trees from properties of all sizes. It could actually just be one tree in somebody's front yard. It could also be a museum like the Huntington Gardens in Pasadena with over 200 orange trees that just sit there untouched for most of the year. Sometimes we get farm and garden veggies, and sometimes donors are interested in doing what we call a do-it-yourself harvest, where they glean the produce themselves and then we connect them to a hunger relief organization to receive the food. Let's talk about now our farmers market recovery program. And in the farmers market recovery program, which started in 2012, we are gleaning 17 markets across Los Angeles and Ventura counties. Each glean is led by a glean team leader. That could also be a staff member every once in a while if we need someone to sub in. Typically, these gleans are also supported by volunteers from our general volunteer pool. Each market has that roster of the trained leaders and the partner hunger relief organizations, which come to pick up the produce from each market site after that food is collected from vendors, weighed, and then allocated to each hunger relief organization picking up. And we can progress on to talking about our different options.
So there are a couple ways to volunteer with us. As a general volunteer, you're able to just volunteer a one-off event and you register for those events through our volunteer calendar on our website. And then as an event leader, you're completing both a virtual and in-field training to learn the ways that we work. And then you're leading general volunteers and you're really the point person on site at those gleans and harvests. So we're gonna explore those a bit more. Our general, next slide, please. Thank you. Our general volunteer experience, as we really rely on our general volunteers for our larger harvests and gleans, and it really is like a show up and help out opportunity. You're required to register online and sign a liability waiver through our website before you volunteer, but there's no orientation or training required. You just show up and all the equipment's on site and you're trained on site. So this allows folks to, try it out, volunteer just once, some volunteer like multiple times, but don't want that responsibility of becoming an event leader. And then some folks do become event leaders. And that's one of our most successful recruitment strategies, is kind of cultivating those relationships with folks who come back. And our communication for a volunteer event, we try to be really thorough. So we're sending them an email after they register, a 4-day email reminder, a 24-hour email reminder, because as we know, nobody reads emails. And then a thank you email as well after the event that includes the amount of produce that was rescued throughout the event. And we're able to do all that through an automated system on our volunteer platform, which is super helpful. So our event leader opportunity is the true heartbeat of the work we do. We rely on event leaders to lead the majority of harvests and gleans, after training them up and equipping them with all the tools they need physically and metaphorically. Harvest leaders lead a group of up to 5 volunteers. Glean team leaders are sometimes leading a group up to 7, but we try to keep it like 2 to 5 per leader. And there's a lot more responsibility, but a lot more flexibility. So our glean team leaders have more options of farmers markets that they can glean around the 2 regions. And harvest leaders are able to pick which properties they harvest, as opposed to just going on our website and picking from what's available to the public. In a few ways we recruit event leaders include posting on volunteer sites such as Volunteer Match or United Way, tabling at community events, Earth Day, things like that, and cultivating relationships with our general volunteers.
Sweet. So what does that training process look like? Well, luckily for us, like Madi mentioned, most of our event leaders are actually people who've been in the field with us a number of times and know what we're all about. But if somebody goes ahead and applies to our event leader position and is brand new to us, we get them in the field to make sure everybody's enjoying what we actually do and what gleaning is. And then the application process itself is super simple. It's a series of questions to help us get to know these new volunteers and then have them get to know us, of course, as well. There's also a process of signing some paperwork classically. So we have our event leader agreement and then our non-disclosure agreement. We have folks going to people's houses, getting addresses, getting people's phone numbers. That's what the NDA is for. But mostly these agreements are just setting basic expectations and rules for moving forward. Our virtual training sessions are hosted online. My program hosts them twice a month. So we have something set regularly to get people trained up. We're showing them how harvests and gleans are coordinated and then how they can use Citra, which is our volunteer portal online. These two in-field training events, one of them is shadowing of a staff member or a seasoned event leader, the new volunteer joining us. And then the second one is the reins being handed off to the new event leader, and then either staff or another seasoned event leader gets to shadow them, taking a crack at event leading. Then everybody receives their equipment and hits the ground running, and they stay with us forever and ever and love leading. It's our expectations across the Backyard Harvest Program and the Farmers Market Recovery Program, as you can read here, are incredibly similar. We ask about the same amount of events to be hosted by these individuals across programs per year. So they're very similar, especially in the way that we're asking them to honor their commitments. When they sign up for events online, we ask that they stick to those commitments and communicate with us whenever things come up or things change. That happens, life happens. We also want to note some serious differences too. The Backyard Harvest Program asks quite a bit of our harvest leaders. We ask them to maintain the equipment we're giving them. So picker poles, gloves, pruners, all that. Maintain that at your home or in your car on the way to the harvest, and then while on site at the harvest as well, and keep your boxes as well. And then the Farmers Market Recovery Program, our Glean Team Leaners can really lean on maintaining that storage equipment site that is always on site at that market, consistent space every week, week in, week out. They also get to rely on hunger relief agencies being able to come pick up the produce from them, whereas harvest leaders are typically the ones delivering the produce to where it's going to be allocated to folks in the community. All right, we can move on forward to what our coordination and communication channels look like, because of course things come up last minute and we need a way to tell people what is going to be changing in the field from what they might have expected ahead of time. So ahead of each event time, staff takes a lot of their energy to putting in the correct resources. These are addresses, these are gate codes to donors, trees in their backyards, maybe even their neighborhoods in particular. These are phone numbers for receiving agencies picking up the produce at Gleans. We need all that ahead of time for our event leaders to feel prepared for the event they are leading. We also know that everyone has certain personal communication preferences, but we rely heavily on text and phone call when things are coming up last minute ahead of the event time. But we do have more casual communications as well. It's not all just last minute details being communicated here. Of course, we have the community programs newsletter. It's also called the Bulletin, which we release like once every couple months. And it's going to be news about what's going on in Food Forward, ways to get involved that folks might have not known about otherwise. Fun social events that we have coming up as well.
Awesome. So what happens when there are differing ideas about how to delegate tasks, or if someone's pocketing a little extra produce that should be donated? Working with folks from all walks of life, as we know, can be challenging here and there. And our team really takes those issues seriously, and we try to work through them thoroughly. So we always have a staff member on call for any glean or harvest, and we really encourage the event leader to reach out with any questions in real time, or include those issues in the event report that they fill out afterwards. And then when we're following up with the situation, we're calling all necessary parties and taking that information back to our team. We really get to know the event leaders and a lot of the volunteers that are there, you know, routinely or regularly. So some folks kind of know, you know, the nuances of a situation, or we're able to help each other out with that. And usually all that's needed is just a simple call with the volunteer to thoroughly explain a policy more. And some helpful tools we found with any kind of issues in the field that we're not physically there for, or keeping a record of any incidents with timestamps and any correspondence. And then also working to develop our conflict resolution skills internally. You know, we're all still learning here, of course. We've worked with a DEI consultant and accessibility consultant to strengthen our own de-escalation skills and try to pass those things along to event leaders as well. And we've started holding monthly meetings. It's just kind of like an open space for our department members to talk about any sticky situations or just kind of weird things that have happened in the field the last month, and talk those things through. And they're not happening a lot, which it might sound like, but they're not. Okay, the happy part. So we know it's really important to, you know, celebrate folks. We ask a lot from them. So we also try to, yeah, celebrate them as much as we can. We are working on recognition initiatives such as Volunteer of the Year. We have Volunteer Appreciation Month activities. And we are launching an upcoming milestones program, which is going to recognize volunteers as they reach new levels of time spent volunteering with us. And we also started hosting monthly social gatherings in the last couple of years. And that's an opportunity for folks to just really like cultivate community around the work we do. As we all know, this is, you know, like-minded people are attracted to this work. So it's fun as well to like connect with people in different areas of their lives as well. Some of those social events include a bowling night, visiting a local garden, seeing jazz in the park. And of course, we're always trying to tap into those free community events because we're all working on a budget. And creating that welcoming, warm environment is one of our most fruitful and fun retention and recruitment strategies. And next slide, please. So yeah, here's some shots of us out in the field with the help of our incredible, dedicated staff. There I am. And our team of 50 staff members who are able to prevent food waste and fight hunger every day of the week.
Thank you guys so much for choosing this side of the building. And if you have any questions or comments, we're totally here to answer them or chat. Yeah. There's another slide too where you can get our contact info if you want to save it for a digital communication. Yeah.
I'm curious what you feel like the motivation is for your volunteers to become event leaders as opposed to just like one-off volunteers, and how we can kind of cultivate that with our volunteers, because we're trying to move towards more like event leader situation for certain things.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can speak on behalf of the Backyard Harvest Program.
Can you say the question
Especially-
one more time for the Zoom too?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So what is the motivation for folks going from being a general volunteer in our work to an event leader role? Why would you? It's a great question. So in the Backyard Harvest Program, we have a certain number of events on the calendar per month, harvests on the calendar that are open to usually about 20 people max. Those fill up really fast, but people are still interested in getting a picker pole in the trees. They still want to do the work. When you become a harvest leader with us, you have the autonomy to travel the whole city and go to backyards with maybe just 1 or 2 trees, and you can bring just friends and family with you. So the interest in that freedom and flexibility, and you pick your own schedule as well. Those harvest leaders submit their times, they're available to me. I talk to the donors and I rarely get a no. Donors are usually just like, I will leave the gate open, just please come take the fruit, it's falling off and onto the ground. So that's the motivation there. Do you know more?
Yeah, I also think it's helpful, when we're posting on websites, we, like, we have a lot of posts that are like just the Glean Team Leader opportunity or just the Harvest Leader opportunity, so they're kind of like introduced to our organization through like, oh, what would it be like to be a Glean Team Leader? And then a lot of folks do say like, oh, I kind of want to like go the general volunteer route. But I think it like helps when people are kind of introduced to that like off the bat, as opposed to like, I mean, we do have a lot of general volunteers that, you know, volunteer a lot, and we like are not in a creepy way, keeping tabs on them, but like, oh, that person's great, you know. And then reaching out to them, and some will be like, oh, I've seen what Glean Team Leaders do, I don't want to do that. But I think that if they're initially introduced to our program with that as like the way that they're getting involved, that's been really helpful with them being like, oh yeah, this seems like a cool opportunity. And a lot of those markets, like some of our markets are only 1 to 2 people. So if they want to glean in their neighborhood, they kind of have to become Glean Team Leaders because they don't have general volunteers. It's like a smaller group. So talking to folks about that. But yeah, and I think also just like cultivating the community around it, getting to know them. And yeah, I think it's a fun time. So, but yeah, we also on our event report, like if I'm leading an event and, you know, Alden comes to the event, I'm like, oh, she'd be really great. There's a space where it says like potential leader. And then we kind of put them on a list of people who are like, okay, like they seem really involved. They seem like super into it. So that's been a helpful recruitment strategy as well.
So do you guys work with farm partners at all, or is it mostly like backyard orchards and, like, yeah?
Yeah, so the question was, do we work with farm partners or is it just farmers markets and backyard orchards? Yeah, so most of our farm partners are through our wholesale recovery district or program, because those are like super big farms that are like pallets of food, and that's where our staff comes in because they're like driving the trucks to either the market or like talking to a specific farm and doing those pickups that way. Sometimes the big farms will drive to our warehouse. And then all that produce is kept at the warehouse, not for a long time, but that's kind of our storage for like those bigger volumes.
Yeah. The reason I ask is because I think like we have thought about or trying to do a harvest leader program, but it's a little tricky when you're building your relationships off of trust with farmers. And then you just be like random, you know, a random person in their mind that like we're kind of see it. How does that really work? Because farmers generally don't just want anyone to come on their farms or specific training, you know, whatever it is.
Totally.
So I just didn't know if that model would work well for farms, or like I see it working really well for backyard harvest, and like our local nonprofit who does food rescue does just that and really well, but just, yeah, I wasn't sure if you had experience doing it with farms, because it's a little delicate.
So in Ventura County, we do have a number of commercial orchards and then also farms. Are we decent on time, by the way?
Yeah, you're good.
Oh, for Zoom, right? Okay. So Ventura County does have a number of farms, and it has taken a number of years to cultivate that trust between the folks we have on staff and the farms themselves. And it's tricky with timing, right? Like they need to find buyers for as much of the produce as possible. And then finally in the last 2 weeks before they turn over the crops, they're like, okay, I guess you can come glean, which is tricky on our part. So it sounded like what I know from our Ventura harvesting team, persistent communication for a few years has been what's allowed us to welcome volunteers into that space.
Yeah, I would also just say like the bigger orchards, we'll always have a staff member. So if it's like 30 people, we would have like a staff member and maybe like 2 event leaders. So we would never, yeah, if it was like a group of 30 on like a big lemon orchard, we wouldn't leave that to volunteers because we know that that's like a lot of pressure for all people involved.
So where do you recruit most of your regular volunteers?
The question was, where do we recruit most of our regular volunteers? Yeah, I think that we're like well-known in our area. It's like a lot of word of mouth. We're also like on LA Works, or we have different like recruitment sites. that we're on, and those are for both like general volunteer opportunities and also like postings for the Glean Team Leader and Harvest Leader. So virtual reach out, newsletters, we like have revamped our community ambassador program after COVID in the last year. So that's like a lot of tabling at we try to table at the farmers markets that we glean so that we're able to be like, have you ever thought about the produce that's left over at the end of the day? So that's been really helpful. Yeah, I know our like communications team is really trying to get us in like publications and just like get the word out. And then, yeah, I think it's a lot of like organic, yeah, I guess like word of mouth around. And then we also have like some partnerships with schools. So like environmental programs at schools have spots for a certain market of the week, things like that. Yeah.
Do you feel like social media plays a decent role in like engaging, especially like younger folks, or what is the distribution of like takers for your volunteers?
The question is, does social media play a role in the different age groups that volunteer? Yeah, I think that we're increasingly like using social media to get folks out there, because as we know, that's like a huge way to do it. We're like toying with paying for ads. I think that we have like started this year, I want to say. And then we're also like, yeah, trying to increase our presence. So it's like once a week we'll, because like I'm on the volunteer specific team, so we'll send to the comms team like, hey, these are the 3 gleans or harvests that like really need help this week, and then putting that on a story, like here's what's going on, and then like a link, you know, swipe up to volunteer or whatever. And also trying to like story tell, as we've been talking about today, like creating a reel of like, look how fun it is to go up to Ventura County, like we're making a day of it. So that sort of thing I think has been helpful, and just showing, because obviously what we do is so like beautiful and fun, genuinely, in my opinion at least. So it's like an easy thing to market, I guess. But yeah, we also have like a lot of like retirees, like a lot of families. Something like unique about us is that we have opportunities for ages 5 and up, which I think especially post-COVID is hard to find. So that's kind of a good selling point of like, get your whole family out there. Yeah. Anything to add? Sorry.
I'm working with, I mean, this is very case specific, but I'm working with a family right now whose son noticed the same thing that our founder did in 2009. Yeah, everyone's got a similar idea. Great minds think alike. But anyway, oranges were falling in his neighborhood in Pasadena. He thought he had to do something about it. Very quickly, people Google, what do I do with neighborhood produce? They find us if you're in LA. And now I'm partnering with them to make this club happen at the student's school. And so he's going to pull in, you know, his friends, a bunch of teenage boys to come on out. So, I mean, our demographics are really, it's diverse, the groups of folks that we engage. But there are these like one-off interesting scenarios where I'm working with all of a sudden a group of teenage boys for a whole week, or something unique like that. Yeah.
Okay.
For your farmers market recovery programs, is it the, like your team lead or like your volunteer leads only who are doing the farmers market recovery, or is staff doing that? And if it's volunteers, are they bringing it back to like your place of business, or are they doing direct distribution?
Yeah, so most of in an ideal world, the staff is not gleaning, just because there's like a ton of admin and stuff to do. Of course, we try to get out, I mean, and we have to get out because there's not always someone to do it. But we also try to get out just to like make sure everything out in the field is going the right way. But it's mostly event leaders. So a lot of that for our FMR team is like sometimes reaching out to folks and being like, hey, like we know you are often gleaning this farmer's market, can you do it this Sunday? Like, no worries if not. I think they also have a pulse on like how much people are willing to be reached out to based on the individual, just because we kind of get to know the leaders. So folks are, yeah, some people are like, we're like, they're gonna come to us when they're ready. Other people are like, please reach out to us. And then I think something great about the farmers market recovery program is you don't need a car because the receiving agencies meet you at the farmers market. So we're just collecting the produce. We have storage. We're able to get storage like on site, either through the farmers market or a local business that's nearby. So like the cart and the boxes are all on site, and then the receiving agency will come to them and pick up the produce. And if a receiving agency doesn't show up, we have like backup receiving agencies. They would call a coordinator, be like, hey, it's been 20 minutes, they haven't showed up. And then we would have someone who can, you know, maybe be there in 30 minutes or whatever that may be.
That happened a lot.
That, it depends. I think like, maybe like once or twice a month. It's not like a huge problem. I also think like we get to know the receiving agencies. So if there's a recurring issue, it's kind of like, okay, we need to talk about this, like, and figure out like what the issue is. And then, yeah, there are some like bigger other orgs that are kind of on standby that can like come quickly. Food Cycle, I don't know if that rings a bell to anyone, but yeah.
Anybody else? Yeah,
You mentioned the virtual training for volunteers, so what does that programming entail and how do you translate training to a virtual platform?
yeah, great questions. The question was, we mentioned a virtual training. What does that look like? How do you translate work that requires boots on the ground, cleaning, into a virtual platform? So let's see, out the gate, I'm speaking mostly to the backyard harvest leader training online, but we tell people about who we are and our history because some people come to us without having worked with us in the past. We go over what an event should look like. What does it look like the 24 hours ahead of your event time? Well, you should be going on to Citra, which is our volunteer portal, checking your event leader notes, making sure you have everything you need to go to that fruit donor's house or that larger commercial property with a staff member who you're leading alongside. All those details are spelled out for you. Great. Okay, that's 24 hours ahead. You get to the property. What's your next step? What do you do? Sometimes the request is knock at the door of whoever you're visiting. Great. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's go ahead to the backyard. So we're laying out expectations. It is tough to do it verbally, but that's why we really rely on those in-field trainings at the end. Other things that are mentioned in the virtual trainings are scenarios and a little bit of role play. Sometimes our harvest leaders will deliver food or produce to a hunger relief agency partner of ours, and nobody's answering the door, but somebody was expected to be there to physically take in the produce. What do? We walk through all of that so people feel like they are ready to even shadow us for the first time. They're ready. Other things to mention are you're outside all the time. Please be wearing sunscreen, little bits and bobs like that. Ways to get involved and talk with us. And then a big part of our presentation is just walking through every single tab on our volunteer portal website. It's not a perfect system, but it is pretty tailored to what Food Forward does. So it is a little intuitive once you get to know it, but there are some words and resources in there that people have never seen before. Yeah, does that cover?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you guys have lanes like every, oh, sorry. Was this on?
No.
I'm good.
Do you have lanes every day of the week or like, so if you're I forget the event leader, like you can go out whenever, or do you have just certain days or you can do weekends or how does that look?
This is actually a frequently asked question that's also mentioned in our virtual training. So the question was, do we have gleans every day of the week? The answer is yes. If you're a harvest leader, you are picking your own schedule. You're sending me the dates and times that you're available. I send them to the donor. The donor usually says yes. And for gleans, they are actually every single day of the week. Is there a day that's not?
No, I mean, yeah.
Farmers markets?
Friday, there's no.
Okay, there's a pizza. There are no farmers markets weekly and on Fridays, but every other day of the week you could find a market to join a glean on. So,
In terms of volunteers and Citra,
yeah.
how does that all work? Is that a program you guys developed? Is that a program you bought from someone? What's that look like? And then is that both a database and a portal?
Yeah, so our general volunteers only have access to our volunteer calendar on our website, and that is just, yeah, a page on our website, and then you're signing up, registering, filling out the waiver, and then you're emailed the information, but there's nothing to log into. But when you become an event leader, you're able to log in on Citra, like on the back end, and you only have like special. I mean, there are certain things that you can't do, of course, because they can't see everything that we're doing. But yeah, they're able to log in and like see, like we have a map of like ready to harvest areas. And then you can like click on that, and like the donor only wants them to come Tuesday or Thursday. Okay, and then that would go to Alden farmers markets. Like, here are the available farmers markets coming up. And then they can sign themselves up. So they can sign themselves up, or we can say, oh, no one's in Santa Monica on Wednesday. We know that Jeff often does that. Let's reach out to him and we can sign them up. But we encourage folks to use Citra to sign themselves up. And yeah, so Citra is our database. We were really lucky to have someone on staff who programmed it like to our needs, essentially. Really awesome. We're very lucky. And he has since left. But we have a consultant or a contractor like programmer who's helping us continually perfect the site to our needs. And then that is where all the event reports are kept. So after you are at a glean, you'll get an email that says like, hey, thanks for gleaning, fill out this event report. That's where all the agencies are. And so that will show us like the donation receipt, like if at a farm or at a farmer's market, you know, at the end of the year, we're giving each farm a donation receipt for their records as well. All that is kept on Citra. All of our volunteers are kept on Citra, even if they only volunteer once. We don't like ask a ton of information from the general volunteers, but that also helps us, like if we have a huge harvest or like a few huge harvests coming up in kind of more of a remote area, we'll go to our database and be like, okay, these are the zip codes of folks who have volunteered in the last couple of years that live near that area. Let's send a blast out like, hey, we really need help at this place. So that's really helpful for recruitment as well. But yeah, it is like tailored to our needs, which is, thank you, Bill Bachman. Shut up.
Sean,
That's basically your time.
and that's basically it.